This is the Scooptop tutorial number 4. We're going to do the cold shoulder sleeves, which are, instead of a peekaboo, which is just a tiny little cutout up here, we're doing the cold shoulder, which is a more dramatic one. It's similar. This one is similar to the cutout shoulder top, and it's just a slightly different. It's an open wave pattern, but they are cut exactly the same and work the same. Just as a quick note, let me give you guys a note on this. We're doing the scoop top, and I'm just going to use red on this. Here's our measurements, and we're now in part 4 on the sleeves. But if you want a different sleeve, there on the tunic video has regular sleeves. The silhouette has a cap sleeve, and then the tunic has a regular sleeve. The tunic also has a peekaboo. A slight peekaboo cutout. The tunic has a regular sleeve and a slight peekaboo cutout. You can use either one. The silhouette has a cap sleeve, and then we have the cutout shoulder sleeve, all on video. And we'll just be doing a slightly different pattern on this one. This one can also be sleeveless. So the scoop top can be sleeveless if you would like. I'm just going to add another sleeve. You guys can just about do any sleeve type. There should be a video for any sleeve type you want. You just might need to search around for it on my videos, but you would be able to do any type of sleeve on any type of top. So you have a sleeve opening. I said make them bigger than what you would need, and I would show you how to make them smaller. Also, you might notice that these sleeves openings are different. They're not a different amount of stitches, they're just a different amount of looseness because of the beginning chains. So don't worry about that. We will, even if your sleeve count stitches is slightly different, don't worry about that either. That is all just fixable that's all fixed in the finish end. So you didn't do anything wrong. Everything's perfectly fine. I'm going to show you in a red yarn how to begin this. And it is how you begin both of the cutout shoulder sleeves, both of the cold shoulder and cutout shoulder. So they're called both. Any cutout shoulder can either be a small peekaboo at the top, or it can be the cold shoulder cutout. They're all called cutouts. It's just where the cutout is and how dramatic the cutout is the subcategories. So I want to put this a little less than halfway down. So you can eyeball this to begin with, but then you'll need to count and mark for the other side. So I know that I have about 15 stitches here, and it's going to be a little big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just even it up. This part right here won't be in the middle. Just lay it flat, even it up. And then we're just going to copy the same thing. So whatever we do on this side, we're going to do on the other side. So I'm going to go a little less than halfway down. So I think I'm going to go at this stitch, making it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 stitches. So there's about 15. So I'm going 7 down from the top. I'm leaving 8 here. You want to go, even if it's the same amount of stitches, you want to go slightly above. You want to have a little less up here than you do down here, especially if you're going to be reducing stitches. I'm going to reduce by about 2 or 3 stitches down here. So maybe I'm going to go, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 from the top. Just because my shoulders are seeming to get smaller. So just that's where we're going to start, but we're going to be doing some fixing. So I'm going to tie this off really good. I can crochet this tail down as I go. Now we're going to go down to the bottom first. I'm going to turn this over because, as you guys have all figured out, I'm left-handed. And let me see if I can darken this. The dogs are out, so who knows what they're going to do. We'll just deal with it. Okay. So what I do to make sure that this is always washable and it never comes out, and even if it were to come out, it would still be secured firmly here. This is just what I do with cotton yarn because I wash everything. I tie it here on the stitch I want. I'm going to bring it through and pull up a loop, and there's my beginning. That would be my beginning. Let's look at that. That would be my beginning chain, or my beginning. It is technically a chain. So that would be how I would attach it. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom first, and I'll show you why. We have to start at this one point because that's where we will begin after we put a trim and everything on here. That's how we will begin. So I'm going to single crochet and while over this piece right here, and it shows I'm obviously using a different color so that you can see the stitches. Now down here, look down here, I'm going to single crochet, and if you want to follow along, single crochet, and I'm going to assume that your armhole is too big. If it's not, skip ahead. So we'll do both. I'll do a different color on the other side. So when we get down here, we'll say our armhole is too big. There's a whole middle, this is a whole row right here. Right here's this entire armpit row right here. Both sides will have an armpit row, and one will look bigger. The one you finished with will look bigger because of that slip stitch. So when you get down here, say it's too big. You would normally put 2 stitches in. If it's not too big, you just are going to work around and do 2 stitches right here. You're going to put 1 in each stitch. But now look at this part. Again, don't be trapped. If you need it a little bit bigger, then great. If you need a little more room in the armpit, then great, because you've pinned the arms together, try it on. Single crochet in this stitch. But technically, this isn't a stitch. So if your armholes are a little tight, you can add 2 stitches is about all you can add. But this is not technically a stitch in the armhole. So if it's the right size, you're going to want to put 2. See, in this crochet rows, double crochet row in the armpit, you're going to want to put 2 single crochet in that armpit. Oh boy, the dogs are playing. I know it sounds ferocious. So, but I don't need it. I'm not keeping it the same size. But I'll show you if you are keeping it the same size, if that size works for you, you're going to put 2 in here, and then you will be here's your very next stitch. And I know that's a little bit confusing. It doesn't matter a ton if you get it exactly right. It's okay because you're just going to go up the same amount. You're going to fix it on the other side. You're going to equal it. So this is if you don't, this is how you begin if you don't need to make it smaller in the armpit. Okay, and you see my next stitches? Let me get this in frame a little bit. Let me show you. Okay, so let me see if I can get this in frame. This is your double crochet, your vertical double crochet in the armpit. And I just put 1 single crochet in each one and 2 in the double crochet. And then after that, it begins, your stitches begin right here. You see your first stitch? Right there. And then you will single crochet all the way to here, all the way up this side. That's if you do not need to reduce it. Like I said, it was better at the beginning to have it longer, not shorter. Now technically right here, this is not a stitch, right here. So to make it smaller, I'm going to reduce it by a couple of stitches. To make it smaller, you could begin, I'm going to show you how to make it absolutely, really reduce it. To make it smaller, you put your yarn through, you pull through a loop, and then you pull through, go through, pull through another loop, and then pull through all 3 loops. And that reduces, oops, that's a single crochet decrease. So that makes 2 stitches into 1. And this is all in the armpit, so you don't, it's not really going to show. The only reason it shows on this is because I'm using a different color of yarn. So I pulled through, I went to my next stitch, and I pulled through 1 loop, and then remember this is not a stitch right here. Right here is not a stitch. This is your next spot. And then I'm going to pull through this, pull a loop through, and pull through all 3 loops. Now I do need to put another one in here so I don't have a gap. So I'm just going to put a single crochet there, and then I'm going to begin decreasing over here. Now remember, my next stitch isn't until right here. If you don't want a gap, if it feels like it's going to look gappy to you, if it's not how you want it to be, just find a spot like right here. It's not really a stitch, but it would work. Pull through. Don't make it gappy just because I said, oh, go over to this next stitch. If it looks gappy, see how mine doesn't look gappy. If it looks gappy to you, then just do a decrease, pull through, and then I pull through all 3. And then I'm going to do one more. I'm just going to show you how to significantly decrease this armpit if you want. So I pull through a loop, go through the next one, pull through a loop, pull through all 3 loops. And I will show you on the other side using the same, sorry my dogs, using the same color. I know this looks messy, but it wouldn't using the same color of yarn. Okay, so now I've decreased by 4 stitches, 4 or 5. And it doesn't matter how many you decreased by. You're just going to do all your decreases right here. Now the only thing is you need to line this up, and you want to do it after you're done with your decreases. Start here, line it up, just line it up, and because of the decreases I do this, I mark this afterwards. Line it up, and these aren't, this seems like the seam should be here, but look how it gaps. It's not. It's right here. And that's okay that your shoulders look a little different on one side than the other. They don't, it doesn't matter when you wear it. You can kind of see which neckline feels good. The neckline and the front neckline and the back line are slightly different. See what feels good to you. So what we want to do is just line these up here. Make it easy on yourself. This is not 2 stitches here, but just line them up. Line up the stitches even if they're not the same size. See, these are all different sizes. And line them up stitch to stitch. stitch to stitch, and you know you're going to stop at this stitch. So you're going to stop at this stitch. You can mark it, or you can just go 1, 2, 3. I need to do 4 more stitches. So you mark it or whatever, but I just wanted to show you that these are going to line up a little bit differently. I know that I need to crochet 4 more stitches, and because I don't do that at the beginning, I know you can if you're not going to decrease at all, but I like to do it after this one. And these are going to be tight because these are from a chain stitch, so don't worry about that. You didn't do anything wrong. 2, 3. Oops, let me move this. I'll get this right back in line. You'll be able to see. 3, and this is 4. Now see, these are all going to be pretty tight, but they're not. There's nothing wrong with that. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay, so now these line up, and we've got the same amount of stitches up here. Okay, so this is just getting us ready for our base structure, and we're equaling the tension. So you see how some stitches are looser. We're fixing the amount of tension. Now this upper part, we won't be working in this anymore, but to keep it from getting stretched out, we do want to slip stitch. And we have pretty stitches, so because of all the work you did on the bodice, we have pretty stitches. So right here we want to begin a slip stitch. So put your hook through, yarn over, pull through that loop and the loop on your hook. And so this is where we know is our no, we won't be crocheting in that anymore. Right there. And on the other side, we're not, this part is done. And pull through all the loops. Put your hook through, yarn over, pull through that loop and all the loops. We're just doing a finish. We're finishing this armhole. That's all we're doing right here. Now again, when we get to the shoulder part, this is not 2 stitches. If you need it bigger, make it 2 stitches, that's okay, but it's not. You need to, you would go right into, after slip stitching this, you would go right into this one and slip stitch. So you have some options for adjustments in the armpit because all of our armpits are so different. But I'm just letting you know what the standard is so that you can see the stitches. So we're slip stitching, and we're going to slip stitch all the way. Oops. So you have to get behind the camera to do this, and everything looks opposite to me, and me being left-handed. So slip stitch, hook through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. And anytime you can slip stitch the edge of something, I don't like working in a slip stitch, so when there's a slip stitch there, I leave it. I don't want to work in it ever again if I can help it. But it's a nice finish. It keeps things from stretching out. It gives some firmness. Now see, this would be our last slip stitch. Now here is our very beginning stitch, and here's where we're going to begin working. So I am going to, when we work in the round, this is considered a round, but this is the only round we're doing. We're doing 1 round and that's it. The rest is going to be, or we're doing 1 round, we're going to go, then we're going to go back and forth, and then we're going to finish in rounds. So it won't be confusing. It'll make sense once you see it going. Okay, so I'm going to slip stitch here. Now, okay, so every single, once you do that, I would suggest a marker. I'm putting a marker here just so I know that's where you stop. It's real obvious on here, but when you're using the same color of yarn, when you're using the same color yarn, it's not going to be obvious. So please do, you know, if in doubt, mark it. It's not going to get in your way. So we're done working up here. This is that cutout part right here. This is on the picture. This is right here. Now this one is too big for me. This one is more of a large. This sleeve would even be an extra large. So this one's too big for me, but it shows that how dramatic it is. So this is the part we just finished right here with a slip stitch. Now excuse me, we're going to be working with V stitches, and what we want here is we want a double crochet, and we want 3 V stitches. So everybody's going to have a different amount of stitches. You're going to want 3 V stitches for the medium, the small, medium, and large, and you're going to want 4 V stitches. Let's mark the neckline off. You're going to want this side here for the small, medium, and large. This side here is going to have 1 double crochet, or chain 3, and plus 3 V stitches. Okay, the 1X to 3X is going to have the 1 double crochet or chain 3 plus 4 V stitches. So that's what we have. This is a marker, so when you're looking through you can see it. So we're going to be doing 3 on here. So we kind of have to look at it. On this side, both this side, we're going to have a double crochet. So is double crochet or chain 3 are equal. 1, 2, 3. So this will be considered our double crochet. Next we're going to put in a V stitch, but we've got to spread them out properly. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7. So we're going to do a V stitch here, a V stitch here, and a V stitch here. So basically we're going to go the very first stitch, and we're going to yarn over. We're going to do a double crochet, we're going to chain 1 and do another double crochet. Remember, a double crochet is wrap the yarn around your hook, put your hook through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now I'll let you look at this. This counts as our double crochet, a chain 3 or double crochet, and this counts as 1 V stitch. And you can see why it's called that, because it's all worked in 1 stitch. So for you beginners, a V stitch is just 2 posts in some type of center worked in the same stitch. Now they can all be different. It could be a half double crochet and 2 chains in the middle. It can all be different, but when someone says a V stitch, it's basically, this is what it's going to look like. And they'll tell you exactly what the V stitch contains. So that way for beginners, you'll know what that means from now on. So we have 1 V stitch, and we're going to skip 2, and we're going to skip 2, and this is our foundation chain. So this is the only one that we have to, sorry, my yarn is a problem. We have to, I don't want my puppy getting it. She only likes, so we're going to finish this. This is the only place you have to make decisions, otherwise you don't. So I did a double crochet, chain 1, and then I'm doing another double crochet all in the same stitch. Oh, and I know what else. I just remembered. Brenda, my editor, administrator, everything, she has a simple way to do a bell sleeve. So I'm going to add a bell sleeve onto this sleeve. So that'll be fun. You guys will have so many sleeves to do that you can play around with them. I even put 2 different sleeves on a top. Try it on, because the sleeves don't take very long. Try it on and then see which sleeve I like better, and then pull out the one sleeve I didn't like and do it. So I do it all the time. It's really kind of fun. Okay, so see, we need one more V-stitch in here. Now what I would like you to do, because we're using bulky yarn and I just like the way it feels better in my arms, is a lot of these things can feel bulky in the armpits. So we're going to do a V-stitch. We're going to, we can't quite skip 2 to do it. But that doesn't matter. As long as we do the same thing on the other side, it makes no difference. Because we decreased here, we would normally have 2 stitches. You're going to yarn over, you're going to skip 1 stitch. You need to leave 1 stitch in the very bottom of the armpit, and I'll show you why. So we're going to remove a little bit of the bulk. We're going to do a V-stitch. So we're going to double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet all in the same stitch. But instead of going into the very next V-stitch, we're going to anchor it to the armpit. Now the armpit is, it won't be as easy to see on something else, but the armpit is going to be that row where we had to put 2 single crochets in. It's going to be right in that row. Remember, we have that double crochet partial row. We have that armpit partial row. We're going to anchor it to that. So instead of just going to the next V-stitch, we're going to anchor this down so that we can remove some of the bulk. Now we're going to turn this over, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So as long as, however we did this, and if it's not exactly how I did it, don't worry. We're all going to have a different number of stitches in here because of the size. So it's not hard. This way you have something that fits really nicely. So we have a double crochet or the chain 3. They're the same thing. 3 V-stitches, but we see, look how we anchored that V-stitch down. Can you see? We anchored it down. Now we're going to, and we skipped 1. So now we're going to skip 1, and we're going to do a V-stitch in the very, we're going to do the next V-stitch. And see, that will already be anchored down. It'll look a little funky, but it'll all be anchored down. If you feel like there's too big of a gap there, this whole thing is a very open arm. Because this whole thing is open weave, you're going to be wearing a top, tank top or something underneath it. I wanted the arms really open weave. But if you don't like it, you could always go into the very next one. This is the only row that you have to kind of just match one side, figure out the one side and match the other side. But it's 3 or 4 V-stitches. That's all it is. So this way you can learn. And so remember the other side. We just look at the other side. We skipped 1, and we put another V-stitch in. Chain 1. So a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now V-stitches can vary. So then this is the one where, because we, don't worry about how many stitches you have in between. Just as long as you have the right number of V-stitches. This is the only time we have to do this. So I'm just going to skip 1 because there's got to be a double crochet in this one. Okay. So I'm just going to skip 1. It's because we did a little more decrease on this side than this side. We decreased a lot in the armpit. So that's how that happened. We need to have 1. We need to put a V-stitch in the next to the last stitch. Because remember, we're not working in these. These are done. These are slip stitched, they're done. So we just need to leave a stitch here, and it doesn't matter that it's not, we have to have the exact, what stitches we're working in doesn't have to be exactly the same, but the amount of V-stitches with a double crochet, that has to be exactly the same. So the very next stitch we did a double crochet. So we have 3 V-stitches on this side, a double crochet, and we have 3 V-stitches on this side and a double crochet. So now this is a part where we don't work up here. Remember, we're done with this whole thing up here. We're completely done. This is slip stitched. We're done with that. Now we're going to be working back and forth this way for 3 rows. And then we're going to start in the round. Now that might be confusing, but you'll see how it takes shape in a minute. So we're going to chain 3, which is going to count as our double crochet. Okay, we're going to turn our work over. This takes me a second because the top's all done. And leave it sleeveless if you want, or wear it for a while. You can always do this a little bit later. Just try to do it before you wash it. Okay, so this counts as we're stacking them right on top of each other. So this was our double crochet, this is our chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. Now we're going to be working in the chain 1 space of the V-stitch, which is this. So we don't go in any of these stitches, we go in the whole thing, like right through the center. Okay, so when it says work in the chain 1 space, or it works in the space, you're not working in any stitches, you're working in the middle of this whole thing. So we're going to put a V-stitch right on top of this V-stitch, and how you do that is we're going to do a double crochet, so you yarn over, go right in that whole space, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. It's a double crochet, I just didn't want you to get confused. So then chain 1, yarn over, go through the whole space again because we're going to put the whole V there, bring up a loop, pull through 2 loops, pull through 2 loops. Okay, so when it says double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in the chain 1 space of the previous row, this is what we do. And they look like little hearts. So then we yarn over, we go right to the next chain 1 space of the V-stitch. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Chain 1, yarn over, pull through a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. So we put another one, just going to put another one right on top of it. And see how this is nice and open. You can make it any way you want, but this arm, I like the open weave of this arm because this is so open weave. But you don't have to do it that way. I'm just trying to give you options. Okay, so here's where we need to anchor it down, and we do need to find that anchor, that single crochet anchor, and that's right there. And we just go into that and we do a single crochet, and there we have double crochet or equivalent, a V-stitch, 2 V-stitches, 3 V-stitches, and anchored in the armpit. Okay, we're going to go around to the other side. This is already anchored, so we just go right into a double crochet in the chain 1 space, chain 1, and double crochet in the chain 1 space. So see how both of these V-stitches are anchored by a single crochet right in the armpit, so that keeps the bulk down in the armpit. So we're going to see how we're putting a V-stitch on top of every V-stitch. So that's a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all in the same spot. V-stitches can vary on their composition, but they all look like a V, obviously. And the very last one is just double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Just follow along with me, do it along with me, pause it if you get a little bit behind. Now remember, this counts as a double crochet, so we need to double crochet in the top of this, and this one I want to be picky about. Let's look at this stitch. Okay, you know, in the bodice we just went into any 2 loops. In this one I don't want you to do that because this part shows. So we want to go in the top. So this is our triple crochet, or our chain 3, I'm sorry, not a triple crochet. Let's see. I'm not sure what to do about, let me see if I can change this lighting a little bit. Alright, I can't. Alright, let me see if I can find a way to get this to focus. Okay, there we go. See, remember we chained 3 as a replacement for a double crochet. We want to go on the very top, so that means these 2 loops right here we want to do a double crochet. So yarn over, we want to go into these 2 loops, and if your chain 3 got a little tight, you're gonna notice it on this. So you want to be careful and go through those top 2 loops. So we yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So basically, when we build the arm, we're only going to do this once more. We have a triple crochet, a double crochet, or a chain 3, double crochet, and then we're going to chain 3 again. 1, 2, and as you remember, this last chain matters. If it's too tight, it's hard to get into. Chain 3, turn it over. We're going to go back around, back over to the other side one more time. It's going to look like a little butterfly, and that's what it's supposed to look like. So now we need to put a V-stitch in the top of these V-stitches. We need to match what we did on the last row and match it exactly. And I'll show you how this is supposed to look. It's the same as a cutout shoulder, so watch that, but the cutout shoulder has a cluster, not a V-stitch, because it's just a different thing. But I'm going to put a bell sleeve on this too. I'm going to show you how to add a bell sleeve to all the sleeves. So you can stop the sleeve wherever you want and add a bell to it. So we've got our, look at this, only doing 3 rows. You're going to want to do, for small and medium, you're going to want to do 3 rows. So I'm on my 3rd row, so we have a chain 3, a double crochet, a chain 3. That's how that's supposed to stack up. And we're going to put these stitches in. And for me, because this one is a medium, for small and medium, do this. If you have tiny shoulders and you're doing a large, then only do 3 rows. And this one is hard for me to tell. Just kind of think about if you feel like you have broad shoulders or not. So the armhole may need to be big even, but it may not need to be broad. Now we're at that single crochet at the armpit, and I'm going to lay this out so you can see it. I know that helps. We're at the single crochet of the armpit. See how this is starting to look? This is exactly right. It's supposed to go like this and then up right there. And so we need to attach the V-stitch to this single crochet and then immediately go into a double crochet in the next chain 1 space of the previous row. So you're going to have, for the plus sizes, you're going to have 4 V-stitches, and you're going to build another row. And if you're a 3X, I would suggest do 2 more rows. So I'm going into the very last V-stitch. So, and remember, we're going into the top of an actually a chain 3. So we need to find that, and we need to be precise. And I tried not to make it tight, but it ended up being a little bit tight. So just work your way in there. I know this is a big hook, and we're going to do a double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. So when you see that on the pattern, you'll know what that means. This is what this is supposed to look like. Small, medium, large, or small, medium, and maybe large. For the large and the plus sizes, go back and do one more row. So pause this, do another row, or rewind or back it up, and just follow this along and do another row. 3x, I would suggest two more rows. So that's just how that fits. Okay, so now for this is where we're going to attach these two together. Now, if you can see, when we attach these two together, right here, we need a little space there because we need to add a V-stitch. When you attach these two together, here you have that cutout arm or cold shoulder. It's more dramatic. So what you want to do to attach these is you want to make a space to attach these like that will become the chain one space of the V-stitch. So you're just going to chain one, and then you're going to carefully slip stitch into the top of this chain one, or this chain three from the previous row. So now we're going in the round. So get that out. You've been doing that when you've stacked up the rows, so we're just going across now and attaching them. So we slip stitched and attached them. Okay, so this is going to make a chain one space, so we're going to put a V in the top of. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me let you look at this. We chained one. See how we worked a V in all these chain one spaces? We're making a chain one space to work a V in on the next row. So after that, you're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain three from the last part of the row, and now we're going to start working in the round. But to do that, we need to get over to this spot here. So to do that, what I do is I slip stitch over there, and I slip stitch over to the very first V, and this just makes it nice and neat. So you know we have to have a double crochet in this chain one space of the V, but a chain three counts as that. 1, 2, 3. Then we need a chain one. So this counts as our, oops, and we know this needs to be bigger. This counts as our chain three counts as our double crochet. Then we need to chain one, and then we need to double crochet in this space. So what we did was we created a V-stitch. So we have the chain three equals a double crochet, then we have the chain one, and then we have the other double crochet, and this is a V-stitch, and right here is where we will be attaching the next round to. So now we're going in the round. So you want to double crochet in the chain one space of the very next V-stitch. So we went back and forth for a few rows. Now we're going to go in there around, and we're going to put a V-stitch in the top. We're going to copy what we have here in the top of every V-stitch. So we find the next V-stitch, which is attached down here. We put another V-stitch in the top of it, double crochet, chain one, and double crochet. And then here's your single crochet where you attached it at the armpit. We're still going to do that for a minute for a round, and then we're going to go directly, we're going to yarn over for a double crochet, go directly into the chain one space of the V-stitch. And you know, you understand when we get to where we attached them, you know, it's going to be a little bit different, and I'll walk you through that. These don't take very long, but I wanted to just do it slowly together. Those of you that know what we're doing can just buzz through it and see. Here's our V-stitch. So now we started out with 6 V-stitches total. We're going to add a V-stitch. Okay, and this is for the small, medium, maybe large if you don't have real broad shoulders. Okay, so, and this is for the small and medium. Now, for those of you that, for the plus sizes, for the small and medium, we're just adding, for the small, medium, and maybe large, we're ignoring these spots and using this as the chain 1 space of a V-stitch. For the small, medium, maybe large. And that you will just have to, you can just try it on. At this point, you can, I would get around to this point and I would do this so it doesn't pull out, and then try this on. So try this on, so your arm goes through here. This is off your shoulder, your arm goes through here. And so make sure that this is going to be big enough for your arm, okay, to go through. And so try it on and size it that way. It'll work out. It'll work out even if you're doing it for someone else. But this is just to give you the option to have it perfect. So for the 1X, 2X, and 3X, you would want to chain 2 here, and you would want to add 2 V-stitches. But for the rest, for the other sizes, the small, medium, and possibly large, you're just going to add 1 V-stitch. So we now have 6 V-stitches, so we're just going to add one right here. We're going to pretend this is the chain 1 space and put a V-stitch right there. So we just put a V-stitch right there. So now we have 7 V-stitches, which is what I need for a medium. Now here's where we start in the round and we start to attach it. Remember that V-stitch we made out of a chain 3, chain 1 more? We need to go to the top of this stitch right here and we slip stitches together. So this means we finished a round, okay, with a V-stitch. So I would go into the very next V-stitch, slip stitch that, and then begin again with making a V-stitch. So we're going to go, remember, of 3, chain 3 counts as a V-stitch, 1, 2, 3. Then we have to have the chain 1 for the V-stitch, and then we need another double crochet. Okay, so this counts as a double crochet. This is a chain 1. Here's the other double crochet, so it's a V-stitch in top of the very V-stitch, and we're going to keep going around. We find the next V-stitch and we put a V-stitch in the top of that. Chain 1 and a V-stitch in the top of that. Now here is where we just want to continue on with V-stitches, and we don't need to anchor it down because we're at the part of the arm, we're out of the armpit now. So we're just going down the arm. And I go down to the elbow. I think it's a cute way to do it. It's not too warm. I've worn it on like 90-degree days here and with a cami underneath, and I can't even tell I'm wearing it. So here's where we have that armpit part where we have a single crochet. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't need to do that, so we're going to go right in to the next V-stitch and make another V-stitch. So we're just putting a V-stitch in the top of every V-stitch now. We're not doing anything weird at all. Let me unwrap this, I'll let you see it. And we're just putting a V-stitch. Now we have a V-stitch all the way, V-stitches all the way around, we have 7 instead of 6. And for the larger sizes, you're going to want to have 8 V-stitches. You're going to have 8 V-stitches total, possibly 9, probably 8. This is, ooh, I'm so sorry, this is so stretchy. So here we go. And it's the same thing, a V-stitch in the top of every V-stitch. This is super loose for me, but it'll just make it easy to see. So now see, we have that added V-stitch that we added to close off the arm. We don't do anything different there, we just add another V-stitch. And your beginning point will move around the sleeve a little bit, and that's good. You want it to do that, but this way you know exactly how many rounds you've done. So here we are to that makeshift V-stitch, and we want to put slip stitch into the top of the third stitch, of the third chain, I'm sorry. So we go into the top of that and we slip stitch. So we yarn over, we pull through both those loops and the one on the hook. Nice. You guys are almost done and you know how to do a really cool sleeve. So here we're going to do a makeshift V-stitch. 1, 2, 3, and then we need our chain 1 for the middle, and then we need another double crochet all in this chain 1 space of the previous V-stitch. So this is our beginning V-stitch. Remember our makeshift V-stitch. This counts as a double crochet. This is a chain 1. This is another double crochet. That's right. It doesn't look that way when you get back around, but you'll find it because you know what it's supposed to be now. When you get back around, sometimes it looks a little weird, but just look at the top of your V-stitch and make sure. Now we're going to go to our next V-stitch. And do our next round. Now I have noticed that however many, try it on when you do however many rows you stacked up. You either stacked up, I did 3 rows, I stacked up 3 rows before I attached it. I'm probably going to do 3 rounds before and then try it on and see where it's at. So if you did 4, do 4 rounds and try it on and see where you're at, because no matter what size we are, the length of our arms doesn't change. But when this is stretched this way, it's shorter, and when it's really loose, it's longer. So that's why you need to try it on, because it's going to be different. So this way, look how much shorter that sleeve's going to be if it's stretched out. And if it's not stretched out, look how much longer that sleeve's going to be. So I'm going to do 3 rounds, and then you can try it on, because I stacked up 3, so I'm going to do 3 rounds before I try it on. So continue in the round and pause your video. Let me go over this again. Put a V-stitch on the top of every V-stitch. And I'll meet you at our makeshift V-stitch right here. I'm going to pause your video. Okay, we are now at the end of round. I'm at the end of round 3. So the instructions will say round 3 because we worked in the round, then we worked back and forth across, and now, so here's where we started. Here's where we made that. Here's where we started. We made that makeshift. Crochet, the chain 1 or chain 3, which is a double crochet, and then the chain 1 for the middle. So we go on the top. We slip stitch into the top. We slip stitch these rounds together. And so now these rounds are together, and then we are going to chain I'm going to go over a little bit to make this V-stitch look a little bit better. Hold on, so you can see this. Okay, so this is where I attached my third round. And you see how this V-stitch is closer at the bottom, and this V-stitch, because this is where we begin and end, they are not as close together. Let me show you how to fix that. You don't have to, but how to fix that would be to go back in here and to just move over a little bit. Go back in here, do a slip stitch, and then chain 1, 2, 3, 4, because this is our double crochet, this is our chain 1, and then double crochet back into the chain 1 space of the previous row, and that will get them just a little bit closer together. Do you see how that gets them a little bit closer together, so they look more similar to that? This is fine if yours look like this. Probably no one's gonna, you won't notice it, but those of you that just like me, that's a little bit of a perfectionist, if you can just tweak it just a little bit. So see how this bottom is a little closer together than this one. You don't have to do it this way. I'm giving you an option to just a tiny bit of maybe a little more intermediate move. But if you can do it or you understand how to do it, then that's great. So I'm going to do one more round, and then I'm going to do one more round, and I will meet you right here. Go all the way around with your V-stitches, do a V-stitch right here, and I will meet you there. Okay, I'm finishing off this round again, and this is a little bit easier to see. This is a little bit of an improvement. You don't have to do it that way. I'm just showing you the most basic way. So remember, we're going to go 1, 2, 3. We're going to go on the top of the third chain, the top of the chain 3 from the previous row. This is the chain 1 for in the middle. Remember, it's kind of a makeshift thing, but that is standard. We're going to slip stitch and attach them together, and then remember to make these two these two a little bit closer together. We're going to put our yarn through the center. We're going to slip stitch to move to the center of that V. Then we chain. Then I'm on my third row. I've done all the rounds that I need to do. Try this on. This goes down to my shoulder. This goes down to my, almost down to my elbow. So try this on. Pause the video and try this on. And then we will add a bell sleeve to it. Okay. We had just attached our last row together. We just attached, here, let me go back to this. We've done our last V, and then remember we went to the top of the third chain and we slip stitched. And I may change colors, but what you do from here is we're going to, in every V-stitch, this is the beginning V-stitch. Make sure you keep in mind where your V-stitches are. Here's a V-stitch, here's a V-stitch. In every V-stitch we're going to add two double crochets. But to do that, I would like you to do that slip stitch around again, and our beginning double crochet will be a chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to put yarn over. We're going to put another double crochet in there. If you can see this, 2 crochets. Now we're going to go around and we're going to try and find these stitches. So I would like you to put, we're going to put basically 2 double crochets. We're not chaining 1 in the middle. We're putting 2 double crochets in the chain 1 space and 2 double crochets between all of them. So I just put 2 double crochets between. Then I'm going to go to the chain 1 space and put 2 double crochets. I'm going to keep doing that. And go between the V's, put 2 double crochets there. And the chain 1 space, put 2 double crochets there. Okay, so see what I have? I have 2 double crochets in every V, 2 double crochets between every one. And I would like you to continue that all the way around and meet me right here. Okay, I made it around. I put 2 double crochets in the last V before the beginning one. And remember, I need 2 double crochets between the V's. Let me move this up in frame a little bit. 2 double crochets between the V's. And you'll see that it's already, when you get to this point, you can see that it's already starting to bell out. It's already just starting to get bigger. See? The whole thing's already starting to get bigger. We're going in the round. Okay, and then we want to slip stitch into the top of this chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. You see the third one, and when you're using this big of a hook, this happens. You tend to lose these chains pretty easy. So that's really, everybody does that. And then you slip stitch, put it through, yarn over, and you go through all of them. You slip stitch to the beginning. So that way, there you have your foundation to finish your bell. And see how this sleeve bells out? You can put a bell sleeve on anything, but you just have to make more stitches than what you began with. So your foundation row had, at the beginning, this foundation row right here had 3 stitches per V, and we're doing 4 stitches per V. So anyhow, whatever, you have to go more than whatever this was. You have to add more stitches. I kind of know how to do it, but it would take a little math for me to let everybody else know. So then what we need to do here is we're just going to put some clusters in, just for a pretty detail. So they can go, I want you to go into the very next stitch without chaining, and we're just moving over to that and to begin a cluster. So we're just going to move over and begin a cluster right here. So I'm going to, my cluster is going to be 2 double crochets, a chain 1, 2 double crochets. That's all it's going to be. So I'm just going to chain 2 more, and then I'm going to put in the same stitch a double crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 double crochets. And that's going to be our cluster. So basically this is our cluster. It's 2 double crochets, a chain 1, 2 double crochets. Now here I want to just skip 2, 1, 2, and do the same thing. Yarn over, double crochet, 2 double crochets, oops, sorry, chain 1, 2 more double crochets, and a cluster. I'm sorry, a cluster, I'll show you this. A cluster can be made up of anything, and the instructions will tell you and what that cluster is made up of, and then you'll just look back. It's usually in parentheses, and you can just look back. This cluster I've decided is made of 2 double crochets, a chain 1, 2 double crochets. So instructions will tell you to do that. This is my decision, and then am going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and do a cluster in the next stitch, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, and I'm going to continue that around. Put a cluster, put in a cluster all in the same stitch, skip 2 stitches, and put a cluster in this stitch, and do that all the way around, and I will meet you at the beginning. Okay, I'm at the beginning, and the amount of stitches here will be different for everybody because you begin with 3 or 4 V-stitches, and then you're going to add 1 or 2. So it's going to be different for everybody. It'll still bell out. Now see, you're supposed to skip 2 stitches and put in a V-stitch. Now I could skip 2 stitches, but it would be more like 3, and attach this right here if I want with a slip stitch. So when you get there, you're going to have to make a decision. You might just skip 1 or you might skip 2. It's going to be up to you. So up in this one, you want to leave 1 stitch in between. So if you're going to attach them, this one's a little bit different so it wasn't too loose. You just, on the 2nd or 3rd stitch, you're going to go into the top of, slip stitch into the top of the stitch. So we're going to try skipping that many and see how it looks. Okay, and because this is really stretchy, you see, once this looks fine. If you didn't like the way it looked, if it felt like it was too open, you could just skip 1 stitch, put a cluster in here, put an entire cluster in here, or if you wanted a bigger bell, you could put an entire cluster in here and then slip stitch to here. But mine looks just fine. So mine looks just fine to do it this way. So, so sorry. So I'm just going to slip stitch it together because mine looks perfectly fine. But you could just skip 1 if you wanted to. You could count ahead. Oops, I started to put a cluster in there. That doesn't look right. Mine looks just fine. So anyhow, I'm just going to slip stitch to the beginning cluster. And then once it's blocked and washed and all of that, it'll look perfect. So I have a nice big bell. Look at this. Look at how the sleeve bells. The sleeve bells out really nicely. I have a nice big bell sleeve. I could do another round if I wanted mine longer. And how you would do that is you would have to, if you wanted to do another round, how you do that is you need to slip stitch over to the center of the cluster. So I just did 1 slip stitch over to the center of the cluster. You chain 3, and then you begin making a cluster. So that's your 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets in the chain 1 space of each cluster. I'll do that one more time, but I'm not going to add another row to mine just because I like the length of where it's at. But if you want more coverage, or you just want a big, pretty, flowy, lacy, it looks, the more clusters you put in, okay, the lacier it looks. So, okay, so we just put a cluster in the chain 1 space of the previous clusters. So let's look at the next one. Here's the next cluster. And so we would just put another cluster in the top of that if you want to put another row. I'm not going to do that. You go ahead and pause the video and put in another row if you'd like. I'm not going to. I like mine just the way it is. So I'm going to go back, see where I just slip stitched over to the center of the cluster, because that's where you start. If you're going to put in another row of clusters, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to chain 1 and begin around to finish it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 single crochet in each stitch, and I'm going to show you which are stitches. We're at the top of the first double crochet of the cluster. Here's the cluster, and so we already have a stitch there, so we're going to go to the next double crochet of the cluster. Then we're going to put a single crochet in the top of the chain 1 space, and then we're going to put a single crochet in each stitch. So look at the top, you can see each stitch. Okay, but this one you don't have to try, and when you get to the middle of the cluster, it's easier if you look at the top of this to see where the stitches are. And you put a single crochet in each stitch, because we're finishing this off is what we're doing. But when you get to here, you don't need to do that in the chain 1 space. You can just go in the whole space and put a single crochet. But then look at the top of the next, and if you look at the top of it, you'll get it right every time. And I can't tell you how many stitches this is, because again, this is going to be different for everybody. And then here we are at the chain 1 space. We're going to put it in the entire chain 1 space, and then we're going to look at the top to find the next stitches, and we're going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. And that's all the directions will say. So I'm telling you the directions and how the directions look in real life. So the directions will say single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and what they will mean is when you get to the chain 1 space, you can just single crochet in the entire space, but then look at the top and find your stitches. So that's what they mean when they say that. You generally, unless it specifically says to not do it, you're going to just assume any chain spaces, you're going to go into the entire chain space and not split it. So if there were 2, say if there were a chain 2 here, you would put 2 single crochets, but since there's only a chain 1, you just put 1. And see, this is part, if you look at the top, this isn't another stitch. Oops, let me show you. This isn't another stitch. This is the chain 1 space. Here's the very next stitch. So just so you don't get confused, if you put more in, it won't matter. I'll let you know what things matter and what don't. And this one doesn't happen to matter. So we're going to continue on in the putting one single crochet in each stitch around. I'm going to pause it and meet you at the beginning. When working in a round, unless you are told differently, you will always slip stitch into the first stitch of the beginning round, and our first stitch was the top of this double crochet, and that was our first stitch. So you'll always, in every round, unless your pattern tells you otherwise, you will always slip stitch into your beginning stitch. And this makes it nice because now we have our nice bell sleeve. It's pretty big. It's a pretty big bell sleeve. I didn't make it long, but I made it big. Just to show you, see, here's how big it gets. I only did the 1 row of clusters and then a row of single crochet, a round of clusters, a round of single crochet, and now I'm just going to finish it off so it doesn't stretch out too much with a round of slip stitches. So I slip stitch into my first stitch, so I'm just going to keep going, go on to my very next stitch, and yarn over, pull through all loops, insert hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops, insert, yarn over, pull through all the loops, and go all the way around. This is my finishing stitch, so it doesn't get too stretched out. We want the bottom to stay nice and stretchy. That's why I don't slip stitch the bottom of this particular garment. I do many of them, but this one I don't. And but I am going to slip stitch the sleeves. Those need more structure. So finish slip stitching all the way around, and I will meet you at the very beginning. Okay, here I am at the almost at the end of my round, my finishing round of slip stitches, and I'll just show you one little thing that possibly a beginner might not know. You will know when you get there because look, see how these roll over? See how there's a stitch and it rolls over and then there's another stitch there? That's when you know you'll get there. Plus, it's really hard to work into those. So here's I'm not there yet. This is a hard one to work into. And see, here I am where it starts to roll over. Now, you don't just stop here or you won't be finishing it. You have to slip stitch into, I'll see, I've got one more to go. You have to slip stitch into your very beginning stitch to finish it. Otherwise, it'll have a gap here and it won't look exactly right. So this one's a hard one to get into, your very beginning slip stitch. Slip stitches are really hard to work into, so this is the only one you have to, but you do have to go into that one. If you finish it before then, it's not going to work. And then this is where you would cut in your yarn and weave in your ends, but I don't do that. I tie it like this and I try it on. So let me pause this and try. Okay, you've tried it on. You have a small bell. Your bell is only, in this particular item, is only this long. I just showed you briefly how to do it, but do more rounds if you want a longer bell, which most people will want a longer bell unless you're doing a small. But try it on. Try it on and decide if you want more. If you want more of these, you could put as many as you wanted. You could have an you could have a very exaggerated bell, but this is just a small 2-inch bell addition onto a sleeve. And let me know if you have any problems. Thanks. Bye.